Transforming the business with technology in practice. When visiting India, I'm amazed at the diversity, and yet it has been a stable democracy since its independence in 1947. Like many other countries, India is on a transformational path. For its leaders to strategize and plan for growth, it'll need some shared common models to base discussions on, to figure out the best strategies for growth and understand where investments need to be made. Such models can help guide it make its big bets, like the one it made on becoming a software powerhouse in the early 90s. In the same way, businesses can use models to think about and drive its transformation. One such model is a business capability map that today's enterprises may use for anything from identifying and nurturing differentiating capabilities to optimizing project implementations. Capabilities from the business architecture perspective represent a non-redundant view of what the business does. Using a common language so users of the capability map can use words to mean the same thing. For example, the term customer means the same thing across the enterprise. But in reality, this does not mean that everybody in the enterprise looks at the customer from the same perspective. Back to India. The country has 121 languages, over 19,500 dialects, and as many differences in culture, food, clothing, and lifestyle, just to name a few, across the country. There's no way that the government can standardize a country by forcing everyone to speak a single language or adhere to a single set of cultural norms. The country still works well within that diversity because there are mechanisms to connect, integrate, and translate across that diversity. In the same way, the reality of the business may be that it uses different words to mean the same thing, or the same word to mean different things across different contexts. For example, the word sale might mean a product is on sale, or sometimes it might mean a sale has been made. Yet, the discipline of business architecture tries to establish a common language at the enterprise level so people can agree to common terms like customers and products. On the other hand, not every business area will look at the concept from the same perspective. Manufacturing might be interested in the product material for ease of manufacturing, while shipping might be interested in the aspect ratio for ease of packaging. The intent of the business capability map is to agree on a common terminology as an abstraction. It does not mean that there will be a single implementation of the concept. Let's take a real example of a business that rents cars. The company has many departments that deal with customers. Rental that rents the cars, sales that sells used cars, customer service for rentals, customer service for accident handling, the car service for repair, the finance department that handles customer payments, and so on. Each department is interested in some information about the customer that includes perhaps the name, address, members of her family, customer preferences like type of car she'd like to rent, customer's insurance company, the past customer payments, balance remaining, and a lot more. Each department cares only about a part of the customer information, with some overlap perhaps with other departments. But each department does not need to know everything about the customer. The BCM, or the Business Capability Map, has a single capability called customer management. This is just the abstraction of all information about the customer. But it should not imply that all customer information is gathered and managed in a single repository. That kind of thinking is what results in monolithic systems, which we have learned over time is a bad architectural pattern for many reasons. Monolithic systems are hard to change and therefore have a longer time to market, are not suitable for today's agile business needs, are not scalable, and do not handle the separation of concerns effectively, just to name a few. An alternative to building one big blob of customer information is to store it in different places, but have a great integration infrastructure to facilitate sharing. Luckily, two concepts, data-driven design or DDD and microservices architecture, make a better architecture possible. In DDD, we break down the software design and the data into different parts that align with the business domain. In this approach, we want to model the software to reflect the reality of the business. So if the business has rental, servicing, finance, and so on as different areas of responsibility, we want to model software like that. In this paradigm, the context, or technically called the bounded context, defines the scope and interpretation of these different terms. This approach isolates the collision between terms because within a certain context, the meaning of a particular term is unique and clear. Once this has been done, then we write software as small modules called microservices, each of which does one and only one function, ideally. A microservice will manage its own data. It communicates with other microservices in an orchestration to give life to the business processes that these microservices support. Think of these as different musical instruments of the organization that come together to play as a symphony. But if these microservices communicate directly with one another, they have to know of each other. To avoid this dependency, they simply communicate through an event management platform that is like a big container of events. The microservices work by consuming and generating events. A microservice just picks up the kinds of events that it is interested in, does its processing using the data associated with the event, and publishes a different event when it's done with possibly different data for other microservices to consume. The beauty of this model, which is one of the best ways to build software today, is that each microservice is isolated from changes in other parts of the system and can be scaled and updated independently. Supported by other software tools like containers and the cloud environment, neither of which I will go into in this video, we can essentially scale some services independent of others. For example, if the holiday season hits and there's a rush of car rental reservations, we can almost instantaneously scale just the rental part. The key points of this: 1, the BCM is an abstraction and should not drive implementation of software as a direct mapping. 2, if your organization is going through digital transformation and you're not using the BCM, data-driven design, and microservices, you better have a very good reason as to why you are not taking this architectural approach. For a one-page visual summary of this video, sign up on my website. Thank you deeply for giving me the motivation to do what I do.